Ken Pozek, welcome to Brokers and Brews, an early edition, but glad to have you here, brother.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I want to get a lot into you and the business right now, but before we do, really important part is what brew did you bring to Brokers and Brews?
I'm just about as basic as they come. So Corona Light, man, it's just it does it for me just fine.
Fair enough. I
What do you got?
brought a 312 Goose Island, so
Nice.
cheers to you, sir.
Cheers to you, man. Very good.
So Ken, formerly from Michigan, a Michigander,
Yep.
and now in the celebrity area of Florida. And I
Yep.
feel like you are a celebrity. So tell us a little bit about, why you maybe, I don't want to say why you left Michigan, but why you took on a new adventure and how that's going for you down there.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in Detroit, just the same, pretty much the same city as you, right? What you're from Livonia, right?
No, I'm from
From that
Detroit.
area?
Detroit.
The city. I'm from Detroit, but I don't tell people that. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So most recently, my wife and I we lived in Northville, and I was running a team there. We did about 40 million, a little over 100 sides, and just whatever. We just Detroit's amazing. There's so many cool things about Michigan, but it just didn't feel like that was going to be our forever home. And so we made a decision that we should probably move and relocate sooner while the kids are young, and not wait till they're ingrained in the area. And so late 2016, we made a move to Orlando. Just sort of picked up. We didn't know anybody here, but it seemed like a lot of fun, like a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of sales here, a lot of growth, and obviously we're big Disney fans. And so right now we're on track to do about 200 sides and 60 million for 2020.
That's a pretty big jump as far as the number of transactions. Even we met each other in person.
Yep.
We knew each other. Actually, we met each other in 2016 before I was even in real estate.
Yep.
But we really met each other, hung
Yep.
out a little bit at a Tom Ferry event where Tom Ferry called for you specifically while on stage, which is why I say I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity. You're YouTube famous, Tom Ferry famous. I mean, everywhere we go. But
Oh man.
but in all seriousness, I mean, we were talking. You were doing you were going to do about 110, 115 transactions for 2019, and you're already able to track that you think 200. I mean, this isn't really like for coaching and for necessarily just real estate professionals, but I mean, how do you do that? Like tell us more about like really how you've embraced a new area in just under 5 years, and be able to do that a volume of transactions. You're growing a new team down there, things like that.
Yeah, dude. I was so yeah, we ended up doing 153 sides last year. So like we ended up like we thought we were going to do much less, and then it picked up pretty well for us at the end. And so really it was just understanding leverage. That's really been the key for all of us for me is just figuring out hiring and like lead gen. I feel like I have down fairly well. It's just it's really just comes down to leverage. And so the ops side, the sales side, and kind of figuring that out. And I feel like that really unlocks a ton when you start getting that down. So when I got here, that's the first thing I did where we started leveraging almost right away. And I think that's been helping us grow more consistently and quicker.
And your YouTube channel is awesome.
Thank you.
Go ahead and let's like plug it, because I mean, everybody should check out YouTube and your Instagram, and as well as your Disney side of things. So
Yeah, right.
shout them all out so we can write them down and check them out.
Yeah, so it's on Instagram it's just my name, Ken Pozek, and on YouTube it's Ken Pozek TV. And the goal with the YouTube channel was really a few different things. It was lead generation, because we have a lot of people moving here to Orlando. There's like 1,500 people that move here every week. Well, before coronavirus there were, and so yeah, a lot of people moving here. So having people be able to go online and find relevant, good information about the area has been really just game changing for us. And then the other side was more like that entertainment side that we could use for our database. So doing business interviews, doing local insights, little hole in the wall kind of stuff, the best burger, the best coffee, all that kind of stuff. And so it's been good. It's sort of didn't really know what would happen when we started it, and thankfully it's turned out fairly well.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. I mean, I almost am hesitant to follow it because I think we have similar mindset and similar execution. You're just probably two steps ahead of me for various reasons. And
It's all good.
and I feel
we're,
like,
we're
oh,
all
geez,
we're
I'm
all
just
ripping off each other anyways. So
that's true. Again, and I'm not going to keep plugging Tom, but like R&D, right? Rip off and duplicate.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
but the truth is, like, you want to have a little bit of creativity, and you see somebody else do something, you're like, dang, I want to do that. So, but it's a great YouTube channel, and
Thanks,
even
man.
if you're not in the Orlando area, it's just fun to follow because of the stuff that you do. You don't just take us on a little tour of a house. It's a fun, interactive, even if it is a tour of a house that you're actually trying to sell. It's cool to see.
Cool, man.
My wife follows your stuff, and she could really care less about real estate side. So that's how I knew you were going to be perfect for me to reach out to you and say, would you be willing to do this with me? Because I knew there was more attraction than just talking about selling a couple houses or a couple hundred, as in your case.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is the more authentic I think you can be in your online presence, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, the more people relate to you, and the more that they're going to be attracted. So it's like earlier today, I had somebody, hey, we watched all of your videos, we really love what you're doing, we happen to be relocating to Orlando, we want to work with you, and we get that call almost every day now. And if I was just like, here's my new listing, or come on out to my open house, and that was like all it ever was, I don't think that that plays as well to just general audience. So yeah, kind of trying to figure our way out here, but so far it seems to be working.
And I think, what's interesting about it is, yes, the, maybe the motivation is making some sales,
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, you love to be able to do it because it's fun to do, it's
yeah,
educational, it's informational, and you also might get a couple extra sales out of it, or whatever number it is, 50 extra, two
mhm,
extra. It doesn't really matter,
yep,
other than the cost of possibly doing some of the production,
yeah,
because it's just fun to do. And so, we're kind of going into fun to do. I mean, you've been on a weight loss, like path,
yeah.
and like crazy. What kicked that off for you? Because you're a younger guy, so it's not like you looked at yourself at 60 and said, "Dang, what have I done?" You know, and now you're like just killing it. So how
Yeah,
did
yeah. Yeah, so I lost like about 45 pounds in just over 6 months, and it was really so a few different things. One, I started doing more Zoom calls or doing video on YouTube, and I was like, man, I look fat, and so that was part of it. But then I did go for a checkup because my wife encouraged me, hey, you should just go in and see how you're doing. And so I got my blood results back, and it was like high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Like it was just, my doctor was legitimately like, hey, you're 34 and you're on the path, or 33 at the time, but you're 33 and you're on the path for a heart attack before 40, so you better get your stuff together. And so it took me a couple months to kind of like let that sink in, and then after a while, I was just like, I think I can do this. So I reached out to some friends of mine that are in the fitness industry, and it was really like, because there's everybody's keto and paleo and like all these different things you can do, but like what I settled on was that it's just really eating better and eating less calories and working out almost every day. And so I started working out in my office and in my garage, and just going on runs outside, nothing crazy, just 20-30 minutes at a time, and the weight just kind of kept coming back or coming off. So thankfully it's been you know coming off quickly, and I feel better than I ever have. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until now I'm where I'm at.
Well, and I think that's the thing is you didn't look bad. I mean, I met you in person. I've seen you online. I wasn't looking at you going like, man, this guy's a slob or whatever. None of these. There's no negative words. But then you put up a side by side maybe a month or so ago, and it's like, whoa, who are these two different people? It's amazing. So
Yeah,
it was really,
thank you.
again, I mean, kind of like a fun thing, cool thing to see and follow because it's something that hits home for me. Being healthy, I've always I try to joke about things. I handle maybe negative things with comedy and stuff like that too. So I joke that I have bad genetics, and that it's kind of true though. I mean, on my mom's side, there's not a lot of living people, and
Yeah,
a lot of it has to do with stroke, blood, thinning issues that they need blood thinners, leukemia. I mean, all kinds of stuff, different
yeah,
cancers, and then on my dad's side, there's a little bit of more longevity, but there's still a lot of underlying conditions. And so, I at 19, I started working out, and I come and go, and I'm at a point right now where I definitely need to do more coming than going. But overall, health has been something that's been important to me for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And so when I see anybody, it doesn't matter. You could have been in great shape and you decided to get into better shape. It doesn't matter. It's just like, it's just, I love seeing it. I just like seeing it. It's
Yeah.
cool.
I appreciate it, man. I think a big part of it was it wasn't like because I thought at the time I was like, oh, I'll just drop 20 pounds and I'll be good to go, and then I'll just go back to how I was living. And I think a lot of us do that, right? Like you eat really healthy for a week or two, you cut some carbs, you cut some sugar, or whatever, and it's easy to drop those first 5 or 10, and then you go back to your old lifestyle. And so for me, it was really kind of wrapping my mind around like I need to change the rest of my life, and it was like making that decision and getting really clear that this wasn't just becoming like a diet, but it was like, here's how I live now. And, so that paradigm shift made it all a lot easier. As well as like, creating a community around it. I've got a lot of friends of mine that are also on the journey. And so we text each other, we're keeping each other accountable, and we use MyFitnessPal to kind of check in every day on our weight and what we're eating. And kind of the gamification of all that stuff makes it a little bit easier,
Hmm.
but you still got to commit to do it. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. So I'm thankful, and hopefully I'll be here a lot longer than I would have living the other way.
And so, was it a family change or just a Ken change?
No, definitely. My wife's been super supportive, making sure she's cooking better, but I'm still out there for a couple meals a day on my own. And so very easy to, want to pull into Chick-fil-A instead of
Yeah.
pulling into a place I can grab a chicken breast and salad. Right. And so it's just, keeping those things in mind, for like Chipotle has become my go-to, which is kind of a funny thing to say because it's not like health food, but you can go to Chipotle and clean it up really, really well.
Yep.
Get some steak and veggies and some salsa that's actually really low cal and low fat. And so that's been my go-to on like making sure I'm not caught anywhere because there's a Chipotle everywhere.
Right.
Like if I start to get the shakes or I'm it's been a little too late in the day before I'm eating, I'll just pop in there. And that's having those setting traps for yourself in a positive way. I think allows you to succeed a little bit easier.
Those burrito places really are. I mean, whether you were like, even if you were trying to like bulk up because you were like, gaining muscle mass, and
Yeah.
then you can go with the crazy big burritos and get 2,000 calories. Or, like you said, you're trying to stay healthy, stay within maybe a certain calorie range. You can very easily, like you said, make a meal 3 to 500 calories, depending on what you want. I mean, that's a low calorie count, but you can
Yep.
get protein as well as some carb and everything in there,
Yep.
from Chipotle, Qdoba, and I think almost any other places. There's probably some that you can't, but for the most
Yeah.
part.
Hey, you
So
just stay away from some of the rices and like some of the crazy stuff. I do the bowl instead of the burrito, and it kind of gets rid of some of the extra carb and makes it easy. But yeah,
yeah, so like you mentioned the word earlier, and it kind of starts to come full circle. We've talked about your business a little bit, and we've talked about your diet a little bit, and here we are. We're wrapping up April, and we're still obviously dealing, and probably going to be dealing for a while with, COVID-19 and coronavirus and whatever other terms we have for it. How has that been in your area of Florida? I mean, Disney's still closed, right?
yeah, it's for the foreseeable future as well. I mean, I have plenty of clients that work there, they're cast members, and they've been told anywhere between June and September is when it'll open. So Disney's losing something like 30 or 40 million dollars a day that Disney World's closed, which is like a big number. But yeah, it's interesting. We've got two sort of separate sections of Orlando. We've got the resort market, which is dead right now. I mean, days on market are just going up and inventory's climbing. But we've got the suburbs that are still doing really well because we have some diversification. We have tech and healthcare and government contracting and some other stuff. So thankfully, those people have jobs. They just happen to be living like working from home. So we've had to pivot and look at where the deals are still happening, which is downtown Orlando, the suburbs. I mean, I'm in right now. We're negotiating an offer. I'm against four other offers on this house. So market's still moving. It's just
Yeah.
you gotta know where it's moving and then shift as best as possible.
And I mean, your guys' stay home order was much later and much shorter than here in Michigan, where we're still considered. Ours just got extended, and real estate is still considered non-essential. So
But
we're
pot shops I heard are open, which is
Yeah, yeah. Well, we could go into all the ins
Fair,
and the
fair
outs
enough.
of like what maybe does or doesn't make sense, or if you compare the two, why one does, and things like that for sure. Um, but I mean, it's like we're still making it happen. In fact, I've entered two contracts just in the last week. So
Nice.
it's not that it's not happening, but it's happening differently, and it's much more difficult if you're not very sure of a house. You can't put in kind of a little bit of a blind offer and
Hmm.
go see it for the first time during inspection. Even if you have great photography and videography and stuff like that, but we're questioning things about a basement or something, those are the types of things you want to see before you've dropped 400 or 500 bucks on an inspection. Um,
It's true.
so we're getting it done, but you guys have had a much different approach. How has it affected real estate, though? I mean, I'm sure that there's still it doesn't. I mean, it does matter because there's legality, but it doesn't matter what your governor says. It really matters what the people feel, right? Are the people wanting to get out and see houses? Are sellers wanting people to come in right now? Or have they kind of taken on a different approach, almost like Michigan, and said, no, stay away?
Yeah, it's so the first 2 weeks, so this was probably like mid March, we lost 10 deals. One of them we got back, so 9 deals is what we ended up losing those first 2 weeks between people getting furloughed, people just backing out because they were scared. And so that worked out to be very real numbers in terms of dollars and commissions and that sort of thing, but really had mostly to do with families, right? And so then over the past 2 weeks, people have been like, you know what, it's not nearly as bad as we had anticipated. Yes, some people are furloughed and can't buy, but there's plenty of people that have started coming out of the woodwork, and you find them motivated pretty quick that way. So we've always been virtual here first, especially in the resort market, because people like say from Michigan are buying a second home here, and they might not see anything online they like right away, so they expect us to go do virtual showings, get it under contract, and they fly down. So that really hasn't changed. That's like something we've been doing for the past 2 years. And
Sure.
so kind of leaning into the whole virtual world even more, and doing video on every one of our listings has been a big change for us. And yeah, just trying to try to meet the people where they're at, because you meet some people that are like, COVID-19 is garbage, and you have other people that are like, I'm scared to die, right? And there's like, you've got everybody on that spectrum. And so you got to meet people where they're at, making sure that you're being sensitive to that, and then giving them the tools they need in order to succeed in the real estate space. So that's what we're focused on.
And is there seem to be a push for new ways of doing business when it comes to maybe masks or other health and cleanliness concerns or anything like that? Or is it somewhat business as usual in your market right now, outside of what you just said?
Yeah, it's been the more houses that I show, which I wasn't doing a lot of buyers for a while, and then I've started, just it seems as though I'm doing more buyers right now. So it's interesting. Like I showed a house today, and these people, they reached out to me 6 months ago, and they're like, "Hey, our lease is almost up. We have to buy." And so of the houses we saw today, two of the sellers just left the front door wide open, left
Mhm.
all the lights on, and said, "Please don't touch anything when you come in the house. Please put a mask on." And so that's kind of interesting. Like they just leave the house wide open, and so that's kind of the difference. We're seeing sellers that need to sell, they're a little bit more cautious. Buyers that need to buy, they're a little bit more cautious, and we're making it work. So hopefully we stay safe and keep moving through it.
Yeah, and I ask because I'm in some different forums here, and I try to put my 2 cents out there for what we should be doing. Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of question and concern around this, and I'm seeing all kinds of crazy stuff from the realtor can be the only person to touch anything in the house, light switches, cabinet doors, this, that, the other thing. They must disinfect before they put on a pair of gloves and then wipe down everything after. I mean, and I'm not saying that's crazy. I'm just saying it's a lot. I'm not saying it's not worth it. That's not my judgment or my call to make.
Yeah.
But it is a lot, and it's definitely a change. On top of that, there's a shortage of a lot of these supplies, so it's kind of difficult to accept. Now, it's reality, so it's what we might have to do, but
Mhm.
it's not going to be easy. So, I'm just like everybody I'm talking to, especially if they're outside of the Michigan market. I love knowing like kind of what your approach has been, or is, or continues to be, or those types of things.
Yeah. So like in the result from today, right? If they leave the door open or they leave the lights on, I don't have to touch anything. we can come in with masks. We don't really have to disinfect in and out. I mean, our shoes are something that I'd be careful of. Maybe putting some booties on or something. But it's funny, that's not something that people have been asking for. It's always gloves and mask and disinfect. But shoes are okay, which is like whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? To me, I just try to be as sensitive as possible because you really never know who you're talking to, and
Right.
just kind of go from there.
Yeah. And so you kind of mentioned, like there's two different markets a little bit, the resort market and, like your normal suburb market and things like that. And obviously the big question is, is something going to tank or is there a deal out there? Um, Based on maybe some loose terminology, is there a deal in the resort market right now? Is it harder to sell, things like that?
It is harder to sell, and so here's the kind of the trade-off. So there's probably 60% less buyers from what we can tell in terms of looking at the show. Like, and when I say 60% buyers, there's 60% less showings happening via showing time. That's what the program we use that kind of book showings and that sort of thing. There's 35% less sellers on the market in the resort market right now, right? So there's definitely a gap between how many showings and how many listings there actually are. So interestingly enough, though, it's not like the resort market is completely tanking as you would think. And so I think time was going to have to tell on that because you and I know like we're 30 to 60 days behind on a lot of stuff, right? So March was a fantastic month, but that's because we put those deals under contract in February. When I look at what we're putting under contract and the amount of showings happening right now, I think that there are going to be some deals. I guess that's a long way to say it, is that there has to be eventually to where these sellers are like, we just lost 6 months of short-term rental bookings. We can't afford to not have those. So we need to sell. And so they're going to start coming to market. And so I'm getting those calls a lot. And I'm telling people like, listen, I appreciate that you want to sell because you're nervous. And maybe you should consider waiting till mid-May, June before we put it on the market, because right now nobody's looking and those days on market are just going to start clicking. Right. And so it's going to be an interesting summer. I really think, I think cooler heads will prevail. Some sellers will say like, well, maybe I was jumping the gun. And other ones are going to be like, no, I literally can't afford, I'm going to lose the house. And so, yeah, time's going to tell for me. I'm just telling my sellers, hang on till the world opens up in a few weeks, hopefully. And we'll see what happens. But if there starts to become some deals, you better believe I'm going to buy them up.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, you can see obviously what the difference in things, how they happen from the Great Recession through, now, and of course leading up to that. I mean, Florida market. I know people that sold places like parents, of people of our age that they sold, leading up to those times, and they maybe sold something for 200,000. They saw it go for as high as like 700,000. Then of course the crash comes. They saw it sell
Yeah.
again for 300,000, and here we are again back to somewhere around 5 to 7, depending on which area. And Florida's way too big for me to start going into specific areas. When it comes to
Yeah.
those price points, but those are real numbers. Those aren't. I didn't make those up. That's a specific conversation with a person that I've had. Um, so yeah, if you got the money and you start seeing like something happen, like you said, buying them up probably is a good idea. But do you see then? Are they always two separate markets? In other words, if the resort market starts to fail a little bit, or if it comes back booming one way or the other, does that impact the other market, or are they really, truly, pretty much two separate markets?
I think that, we're one tide economy, right? I mean, in Orlando, tourism is huge here. And so, yeah, you've got the, business owners that live in the suburbs, but they depend on the resort market for a lot of their income. And so they're definitely, hand in hand. And so, but to me, I look at if there's 35% less listings and there's 35% buyers looking, well, then now we're still at the same kind of net amount of transactions that should be happening.
Hmm.
So until those numbers get super lopsided, I don't think that we're going to see some crash. But again, time's going to tell. Like, I mean, I just read today that like 170,000 Floridians unemployment was denied. And so, that starts to trickle down. You look at USA Today had an article that said that something like 2% of all mortgages are now 30 days late. So what happens? I mean, they don't start foreclosure for 90 days, 120 days. So really what it means, we're not going to see the effects of this until July, August, and then you hope that maybe there's some forbearance or some kind of things that people can catch up on once they're back to work, but who knows? And so a lot of this is just like, gosh, I wish I had a crystal ball. I could figure this out. But it's just, I think as agents and business owners, we just kind of dig into the numbers on a daily basis, figure out how many listings, how many pendings, pay attention to foreclosure numbers, and then you just try to pivot wherever the opportunity presents itself. And so that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's there's pretty similar results here. I mean, I've had a couple of homes that I've looked at for buyers, or we've put in offers, and they've gone. One was in Canton, went up same day, four offers, and obviously went pending the next day. And yet there was another home, one of the two that I was talking about that I put people under contract with. Actually, both of them were on market about 17, 19 days, and not super negotiable on price though. Even though we're kind of sitting in an area where people are either hot to buy or they're just sitting back, And
Yeah.
so, but the sellers weren't sitting here in a panic, like, oh, I'm just going to give away my property. And
I
so,
think I think part of that has to be, excuse me, like just real quick. I've been thinking about this a lot. Like why are sellers like they have so much bravado right now? Like they're like the market's fine, like the world's on fire and the market's fine. Like I don't remember that from 2007 to 2008, and I was in the market at the time. At the
yeah,
time, people were like, "Please take my house. We're out of here." Right? Like
right,
that was like what it was. And so I feel like a big piece of it is because we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, right, you guys have another 2 weeks of quarantine, and then things start to kind of open up maybe, right? And whereas during the recession it was like, who knows when the bottom's going to end, like who knows what's going to happen. And so I think until we get into sort of that spiral, people are going to start saying, yeah, we're not negotiable, there's four
yeah.
offers on the house, right? And so that's why you got to pay attention. And for you being out showing buyers all the time, that's the only way you can really keep your finger on the pulse.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I think too is, and I put up like a graph a week or two ago, kind of showing the amount of time it was taking to sell homes leading up to the recession, and the amount of times it's been taking over the last 5 years. And it's a drastic difference. We were actually in a buyer's market leading up to that. We just had appreciation like through the roof with a lack of equity in homes. Whereas obviously, since in Michigan, at least since like at least 2013, maybe even 2012, we've seen more of a seller's market. And so I think that probably also leads into some of that bravado that you spoke of, where the sellers are like, nah, someone else will come along. Because a lot of people have been conditioned to this. I mean, there's a lot of first time or second time home buyers in this market who if you were a first time home buyer and you won on 13 offers and you paid $10,000 over and a guaranteed appraisal and all this crazy stuff, you're probably looking at it like, screw them, man. They can offer this or they can go pound sand, And so,
Right. Right.
I'm sure that has something to do with it too. And I think that we don't know what the ultimate unemployment number is going to really be. Obviously, a lot of people are, laid off, furloughed, and unemployed right now. But we also have, like you and I are considered unemployed, even though, I mean, by the federal government, even
Mhm.
though like you might be working, just you're maybe not working at the same capacity you normally do or what have you, or because I have to
Yeah.
work from home, I'm not really working and I still have to report income. And if I happen to get it, but I for sure had two deals fall apart because of this whole thing too, so
Hmm.
I can sit here and say, oh, cool. In the last 7 days, I've put two people under contract and I've got a closing coming up and blah, 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 blah. That's all great. But if we had this conversation on April 1st, I'd be telling you about cash deals that were falling apart because the stock market was crashing and
Yeah.
COVID-19 was coming out with a vengeance and stay at home orders and all these crazy, bad, terrible things. That
Yep.
some things have turned the corner a little, some things haven't, whatever. Um, but I think that ultimately the unemployment number is going to be the real answer, right? How many people come back to work? What jobs still exist, and then what people's thoughts are in that mindset. Like when I come back, do I feel confident that I'm back at work, or do I feel like in a couple months I might be back out of work? That's going to, I think, be the ultimate factor for me.
Yeah, I agree. And then how many people start working from home more permanently, right? And how does that affect retail? How does that affect office space? There's a lot of different, variations to all of this stuff that are, again, just, unseen. Like a lot of us would love to figure it out. Being in real estate, people just automatically assume I'm going to know. I don't know. Like I might know a little bit more than the next guy, but like I'm in this with you, like, so let's figure
Yeah.
this out together.
Yeah.
So we'll see
Well,
how it
it's
goes.
like I mean, you use the term that I use all the time, crystal ball,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't have one to tell for sure, so I can only use data.
Yeah.
And, here's what the past is, here's what the last 40 years have been, here's what we've looked at in the last 30 days, 5 days, 2 day, whatever, right? And all that kind of doesn't say bad doom and gloom. So if you're looking for the deal, you might have to keep waiting, and if you're looking to sell, it still could be a good time.
Hmm.
It might be tough to sell right now here if you haven't been listed and can't get a photographer to your house, so you have to take iPhone
Right.
photos. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
that'll change, right? I mean, we're really talking, and it sucks for someone that really wants to sell, but it really is temporary.
Hmm.
Even if we are non-essential all the way through May 15th, that'll be March 23rd to May 15th. It's still really a short window out of the course of a year. You're still going to
It
be
is.
out there for the main part of Michigan. We start really going crazy starting in May, anyways, when it comes to listings. So, and there's a lot of buyers who are sitting at home waiting to see properties. There's a lot of people that don't want to buy through virtual tours. So,
It's
um,
true.
I think
Yeah, I
it'll all
think I
balance out.
yeah, I think in May we're going to see a surge, and then of people sitting on the sidelines that still have their house. But then who knows what happens after that for these people that have been late on their mortgage, or have been. I think that maybe there's actually a second ripple somewhere down the road, even though we're all back to work and doing our thing. So, but yeah, again, time will tell, man. I think the only thing that we can control though out of this market, good market, bad market, is the actions that we put out, right? And so for us and like for my team is like we're doubling down on prospecting. We're going after our past clients, just checking in, doing care calls, and we're also checking in even more frequently with our leads, just trying to filter through, find the gold, right? And I think that's at the end of the day, that's all we can control, right? I can't control the market. I can't control other people's actions. I can control what I can do, and so I've chosen to double down on still creating content and still doing direct mail and still reaching out to my clients and making sure they're cool. And so I think that's the difference between why my team and I are going to succeed versus where most agents are just put their head in the sand, hoping that it's May 15th or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So we'll see.
no, you're right. There's definitely some people, and I've talked to even some who've been in real estate for quite a while, and almost they're loving the break, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I get that, and maybe they have enough of a referral base because they've been at it for 18 or 20 years that they're not too worried. But I think you can only take the foot off the gas pedal in any business for so long. Um, People do call you. People call you from your YouTube videos and say, "Show me homes, come list me," all those things. But if you stopped making those videos for the next 6 weeks, I'm sure your 200 number probably goes down to 190. I mean, those types of things, right?
Yep.
So same thing. If you've been in the game for 20 years, good for you. I get that you're kind of welcoming the break, but if you're not at least talking to some people or emailing or something to let people know you're still in this, then you're probably doing yourself a disservice. But I suppose you're helping Ken and I and some of the other active agents, so that's fine by me. I
Yeah,
suppose.
that's
So
right. Yeah, for sure.
what fun things has the Pozek family been able to do? Because maybe it's been a little slower, or there was a few days at least, something like that. Have you been able to take? I hate to say it, take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I hate to say that take advantage of it, but to me, it's opportunity to spend more time with the family, more movie nights, more. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to be there at 8 o'clock because I mean, this is my office right now, and so being able to wake up, have breakfast with the family, go grab breakfast and come home. That's been really awesome. Getting a little bit more family time is definitely opened up my eyes to the opportunity to potentially work from home a little bit more, see them a little bit more, try to make this all work, for me even better. And so, so it's not all bad. It's not all bad. I think that this is definitely a clarifying thing for many of us, and how if you didn't save 6 months ago, you should have been saving the whole time, right? And so
Yep.
maybe, hopefully, you'll learn this lesson. If you're not spending enough time with your family, and now all of a sudden you get that, well, then maybe that's a good thing, right? So I think for me, I'm trying to be the eternal optimist in terms of looking for the opportunity in even like the worst times that we're in. And so we'll see what happens. But I think that for myself, my family, my business partners, we're going to be better for it at the end.
Yeah. Well, I think, same thing, right? Is you've seen now a slowdown where well, here we are. I mean, we're using technology, and a lot of people are now your kids are using it for school or whatever. But the
Yeah.
where I was going was like we were in such a mode of just texting and like, hey, you busy Friday? Maybe. Like you never wanted to commit because it was like you
Yeah.
didn't want whatever. And now people are just yearning to be able to see each other.
Isn't that
And
cool?
yeah, so I hope that part stays. I hope that's the part that people remember the most is when you weren't able to go see folks, and that there's more of the focus on like getting together. I mean, most people like to get together for a party or get together for a big thing, like, whatever, but getting together, just, your family and my family, hanging out, we're going to play some cards, whatever. It sounds kind of lame, but man, right now we're doing it like
Sounds
virtually.
pretty good.
It
Yeah.
sounds
Sounds
awesome.
kind
Like
of
I'd
good,
love
right?
to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I know it's a little chilly in Michigan, but like the fact, like we live tucked back near Disney, but like there's a main road with like 8 foot sidewalks, and usually they're fairly empty. There's a couple of us that are running and biking, but man, I'll tell you what, the past month they've been packed with people, riding with their families, right? And it's like it's kind of cool. Told my wife, like, I hope that continues, right? I hope people remember that, like that family time and being able to, get out there and ride your bikes or just enjoy nature for a little bit of time is something that people continue. So we'll see.
Yeah. So anybody who's actually like seeing this, I have like just a picture that says superheroes rule and whatever, but you've got like legit superhero stuff behind you.
Yeah.
We don't have
A whole
enough
bunch of
time to go over all of it, but what's the coolest one back there?
the coolest one back there. It's down on the floor. It's hard to see, but like this is actually from the first Iron Man movie. Like when Tony Stark comes out of the cave with his first Iron Man suit. That's actually from the movie.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. That gun behind me is it's from the original Pirates of the Caribbean movie, the first one. It's a stunt gun. So I've got a bunch of cool stuff. But yeah,
And I,
always collecting, always adding stuff.
and I saw you go out in your mask, so to speak, to the store so you can stay
Yeah,
safe. So
yeah, exactly.
So how do you find that stuff? Like, do they, are you on an inside tip? Is it coming to auction? How do you, obviously you're close to it, but I mean, how are you coming across it?
Yeah, a lot of this stuff comes from the UK actually. Like the UK and Atlanta and LA are like the three hubs for where they shoot a lot of these movies, and so there's auction houses in each big city where after a movie wraps or after whatever show wraps, they put it to the auction house. So there's a bunch of them. There's Invaluable is a company or an auction house. There's Van Eaton and Prop Shop. Those are like the big three that I buy a lot from. So posters and different things like that. So yeah, there's these different auction houses, and so it's actually gotten more and more popular. Unfortunately for me, because it gets to be more expensive, because there's a lot more creators out there, more collectors. But yeah, it's fun. It's a good hobby, especially where I'm at. It kind of ties in really well.
So what's the one item maybe you sold that you wish that you wouldn't have?
I have not sold anything. That's I feel like all the collectors I talk to, they tell you that one thing that they sold and then they wish they had back. But no, I mean it's interesting to see the values kind of go up. So I don't think we're going to sell. I think this will be maybe some college fund or retirement if I need it. So
All right. Well,
yeah.
I was looking forward to like your heartache, but
Oh
apparently
yeah.
that wasn't going to happen here.
No,
Um,
listen, the market's not that bad yet.
Before we wrap up and everything to that, I mean, is there anything that you were like, man, really wanted to talk about this, or any thoughts, any going away messages, anything like that that you might have?
I think right now is it's just the opportunity of probably our lifetime of when was the last time there was a pandemic and we were all forced to stay home, and so right now it's you get to choose your own adventure, if you will. You get to decide, do you want to double down on creating a bigger, stronger business, or do you want to put your head in the sand? And so I'm just telling people it's opportunity time, and if you're looking for it, you're going to find it. And so through all this, mindset is huge. Making sure that you're filling your head with the right stuff, staying off the news as much as possible, and staying off social media because it can be such a mess. But yeah, I think for me, that would be the takeaway. Especially if you're listening to this, after COVID is open or over, and you're back to work. Just keeping those things in mind in terms of the consistency through no matter what you're going through is going to allow you to win.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Ken. Again, I really appreciate your time. your words of wisdom, your insight into the market down there. You're definitely, the number one go-to for that marketplace. If anybody is thinking about heading down, checking out properties or what have you. And then again, even for fun, just following the YouTube and the Instagram. Uh,
Appreciate that.
I think I have a neighbor that follows you for just your Disney stuff,
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
That's cool.
so it's not all real estate related, but it's cool stuff, right? Some of the behind the scenes. I guess I was gonna let you go, but I said behind the scenes. How do you get I mean, how'd you get into that? How'd you get some of that cool photography?
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
if you
Oh,
can.
like where there's nobody, like nobody there. Part of it is, so I started getting into it just as a hobby. I've been doing like background extra work for like Disney and that sort of thing. So you get into some of the parks really early before they open up because they're trying to do different photography, and I'm in the background. Other times it's you just wait till everybody leaves, and then you get an empty park shot, which is kind of cool. So yeah, you just kind of get to understand the parks and how they work and the security, and try to be as friendly as possible without overstepping the line.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So, all right, now I will let you go. Before we head
Thanks,
out, of
man.
course, I saved a little. So, cheers.
Cheers,
Thanks.
my friend. Yep,
We'll catch up
absolutely.
soon.
Thanks again, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.